Just before this episode, here's how you can get more from Never a Truer Word. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe to this channel to get early access to the weekly analysis episodes, video episodes so you can see the statements as I analyse them, and exclusive content too. And if you're here on YouTube, then become a member of the channel to get early access to everything and exclusive content not available anywhere else. Hello and welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. In this episode, we're going to look at the case of Ellen Greenberg. Ellen was found dead inside the apartment she shared with her fiance, Sam Goldberg, in 2011. A lot of questions about Ellen's death. The official reason for her death was that she did it to herself, but there's so many questions, so many things don't add up in this case. There's a Justice for Ellen movement is starting to gain some traction and starting to see some results in having the investigation deepened into what happened to Ellen. One of the reasons I've got questions about this is the 911 call Sam Goldberg made when he found Ellen in the apartment. Lots of things there just didn't hang right for me in that 911 call. You can have a listen to that if you want. That episode is linked to in this show description. And now, for the first time, as far as I know, since the discovery of Ellen's body, Sam has spoken publicly. CNN have published a large deep dive into the case, looking at many aspects of it. As part of that, the journalist contacted Sam saying, "Do you want to talk to us? Could you give us an interview?" And Sam sent the journalist an email. And that's what we're going to analyse here, because we look at the words that someone uses and the way they write and the way they talk to see if we can understand a little bit more about what it is that they're saying. So we're going to look at the email that Sam has sent to CNN. Now, this is correspondence. Normally we look at interviews, we look at question and answers, we look at conversations. This is correspondence. It's a one-way communication from Sam to the CNN journalist. So when I look at correspondence, slightly different to what I normally look at, I'm going to look at what are the priorities, because we can make that out very easily in correspondence because it's all laid out for us. Going to look at who is being addressed as well. What's the intended audience of this email? Quite often we will see that we have correspondence which is addressed specifically to someone, but the intended audience is much wider. For example, it might be addressed to one person, but it's for consumption by the public. And sometimes it's the other way around. Someone will release a statement that's supposed to be to the public, but we'll see they are addressing one person in particular. And also, how do they leave it? How do they finish the correspondence? Often very telling. It's the last thing you say in correspondence. It's the lasting impression that you want to give. So how do they leave the correspondence? That's what we're going to look at as we look at the email from Sam Goldberg to CNN. Let's look at that entire email. And it starts, "Thomas, when Ellen took her own life, it left me bewildered. She was a wonderful and kind person who had everything to live for. When she died, part of me died with her. Unimaginably, in the years that have passed, I have had to endure the unimaginable passing of my future wife and the pathetic and despicable attempts to desecrate my reputation and her privacy by creating a narrative that embraces lies, distortions, and falsehoods in order to avoid the truth. Mental illness is very real and has many victims. I hope and pray that you never lose someone you love like I did to a terrible disease, and then be accused by ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. If you're really writing a truthful story, dig deeper and please do some good by raising awareness for mental health. Best, SG." So let's look at the email in detail. It starts with Thomas. Quite a cold intro. It's not "Dear Thomas," "Hi Thomas," "Hey Tom, how are you?" None of that. It is just the word Thomas there. So it's very cold, no salutation, no warmth to it whatsoever. It starts very cold. Then here's the priority. "When Ellen took her own life" is how it starts. So that's the most important thing for him to get across to us, I believe, is when he starts this, when Ellen took her own life. So that's what he sees as a fact, maybe, or what he wants to convince us is the fact. Certainly no debate in his head whatsoever as to what happened when Ellen took her own life is how he starts. That's the thing that he wants us to focus on from the very start of this. Ellen took her own life. He then talks about the effect on him. It left me bewildered. Now that's interesting because as we've seen through the whole email, he's very certain about what happened, but he's saying that potentially at the time he was bewildered. There was no sign that it was going to happen. He just did not know what was going on. Is that what he's saying here? Then after saying that priority, what Ellen did, and then saying how it affected him, he then, third priority, is what a great person Ellen was. She was a wonderful and a kind person who had everything to live for. So only once he's taken care of his own business and telling us what he believes happened to Ellen and how it affected him, then does he say nice things about Ellen. Bit of a pattern here that he says what Ellen did and how it affected him. So when Ellen took her own life, it left me bewildered. When she died, a part of me died with her, is what he's saying there. So very much, I think he's trying to get across, or maybe not trying to get across, but maybe in his head, he is the victim here. He is a victim of what has happened. It left him bewildered, and a part of me died with her. In the way he talks here, though, there's no relationship present. It's very separate entities, Ellen and him. Ellen and him, two different people. Ellen was a wonderful person who had everything to live for. He doesn't talk about the relationship they had whatsoever in this opening part of it. The relationship part between them does not get covered by him. Just what a wonderful person she was, but then what she did and what happened to him. He carries on saying, unimaginably, in the years that have passed, I have had to endure the unimaginable passing of my future wife. So he uses the unimaginable concept twice here. Unimaginably, in the years that have passed, I have had to endure the unimaginable passing of my future wife and the pathetic and despicable attempts to desecrate my reputation. Now, these things happened to him, so they are not unimaginable now. They'd be very imaginable. They'd be very solid because they have happened to him. So why is he using the phrase unimaginable at this point? Well, potentially that refers to when this happened. What has happened since was unimaginable. It was unimaginable to him that he had to endure the unimaginable passing of my wife. Or is he trying to say, I never saw this coming? No, this was a complete shock to me that anyone would think that anything had happened to Ellen other than it was her choice to do what happened. Is that what he's doing there? Is he trying to persuade us that I didn't see this coming? You know, this was a complete shock and a surprise to me because it was unimaginable. More thoughts here of Sam being the victim. This is things he's had to endure. So, his wife may be dead, or his future wife may be dead, but he has had to endure things since that happened. We do have the first inklings of him talking about a relationship when he refers to her as my future wife. Still two people in there, there's no our or we there at all. So there's no pronouns that talk about relationship and things being joint and things being united there. Still two separate entities, my and wife, but also the word future in there. So again, nothing about the status of their relationship at the time. It was something was going to happen in the future. That was that Ellen was going to be Sam's wife. He could have just said that there were attempts to desecrate my reputation, but he has to introduce the phrase pathetic and despicable. So if he just said, and the attempts to desecrate my reputation, the meaning would be the exact same as what he wrote, which was the pathetic and despicable attempts to desecrate my reputation. But he wants again to say how bad these attempts were, how much of a victim he is, and how little he thinks of these attempts. They are pathetic and they are despicable. So he's turning up the severity of what has happened to him again, even more of this Sam as the victim concept going on. He talks about these attempts to desecrate my reputation and her privacy. Now, desecrate is not a word we hear often. It's not a very common word. It's not an expected word. It jumps out at me there as why did he use that? Well, desecrate does have a religious meaning, and I wonder if he is a religious person. He does mention praying later on in the email, so maybe he is a religious person, and that is why desecrate has come in there. But a very interesting word choice there, as is embrace, because he says they were creating a narrative that embraces lies, distortions, and falsehoods in order to avoid the truth. So embrace. Well, what do we do when we embrace something? We actually bring it closer to us. We hug it. We make it feel close to us. We have warmth to something that we embrace. Embracing creates warmth as well. So why has he used such a positive term around lies, distortions, and falsehoods there? Why has he used that term there? It's very interesting to me. Why is he thinking that lies, distortions, falsehoods, in order to avoid the truth, are something to be embraced? Well, if he was himself lying, distorting, and using falsehoods to avoid the truth, he would be embracing them. He'd be clinging onto them. He would be holding them very tight. But instead, he's putting that quality somewhere else. Is that projection? He's putting that on the people that have desecrated his reputation and her privacy. And this has all been done in order to avoid the truth. So this hasn't been done to avoid the truth. This has been done in order to avoid the truth. So is the truth out there somewhere? This is just something that's being done in order to avoid the truth. There's a little bit of distancing there. He's talking about the process rather than what has happened. When he talks about what's been desecrated, his ordering is interesting. The first thing that's been desecrated is his thing, my reputation, and then her privacy. Her privacy comes second. So once more, Sam is the most important person in Sam's story here, because he mentions his reputation being desecrated before he mentions Ellen's privacy being desecrated. And again, we've got this separateness there. It's not our reputations or our privacy. It's my reputation and her privacy. And then he talks here a lot about attempts to desecrate his reputation and her privacy, about the lies, distortions, and falsehoods, but he doesn't expand on them whatsoever. This is a chance for him to tell his side of things, to say what lies have been told, what distortions have been made, what falsehoods are out there, but he doesn't expand anywhere on this whatsoever. No expansion whatsoever on any of these things that he is claiming. He says mental illness is very real and has many victims. That's true. It's very true. But it's not specifically about Ellen at all. There's nothing there that ties mental illness to Ellen whatsoever. It's just something that's true, and it's very true. I'm not going to argue with the fact it's true, but he doesn't talk about this in relation to Ellen. Mental illness and Ellen doesn't get joined up there whatsoever. And he talks about mental illness having many victims. What's he talking about there? Because victimhood is something that seems to come up quite a lot in this email, but that's Sam being the victim. Is he saying that himself has been the victim of Ellen's mental illness? Is that what he's claiming? Because that seems to be what he's claiming in the words there. He says, I hope and pray that you never lose someone you love like I did to a terrible disease. I hope and pray that you never lose someone you love like I did to a terrible disease. What's he talking about there? Because the context may make us think that he's talking about Ellen here, but if he's lost a grandparent to cancer, if he's lost a brother to pneumonia, that sentence would still be true there. Why is there nothing more specific about Ellen in this at all? I hope and pray that you never lose someone you love like I did to a terrible disease. And notice here, he says, I hope and pray you never lose someone you love like I did. So what he's saying there is I did lose someone I love. That's why he's put like I did there. You hope and pray you never lose someone you love like I did. But then he talks about being accused of ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. There's no like I did or like I was there. It's just words that are put out there, but he doesn't put himself there in the middle of the person that was accused by ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. Note he calls them ignorant and misinformed in his email, neither of which means they're wrong. Neither of which means they've got the wrong end of the stick. They are just ignorant and misinformed. But that doesn't actually mean they were wrong. They may have some misinformation. They may be ignorant about some things, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. But look, once more, we've just got these words that he's really not in this part of it at all. He really is. So he takes Ellen out of the part about someone who's died of a terrible disease, and he takes himself out of being accused by ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. He doesn't exist in that part at all. He says, if you're really writing a truthful story, dig deeper and please do some good by raising awareness for mental health. If you're really writing a truthful story, dig deeper. Sam, this journalist, has written to the person that was closest to Ellen, so her fiance at the time of her death, the person that was with Ellen before she died, the person who discovered Ellen in the flat unalive. What is digging deeper than that? He has gone in there and he's dug deep. He's gone to the person who has the most to say, who has not spoken since the time that Ellen was found dead. What is digging deeper than that? Why are you trying to get him to do something else rather than talk to you? He says, please do some good by raising awareness for mental health. Not for how mental health can affect people. There's nothing in there whatsoever beyond the blandishment mental health, which doesn't mean anything. It could be good mental health, bad mental health. He doesn't strike me that he really means that. And also says raise awareness for mental health, not of mental health. Raising awareness of mental health would be doing an article, I guess, on how poor mental health can lead to tragic outcomes. And instead, it's raise awareness for mental health. What is for? Why not of? And then he says, please do some good. Now, the inference there is, please do some good, is you're not doing good. Why does Sam think that the journalist asking some questions and digging deeper and really looking into Ellen's death is not doing some good? Why would that be? Sam finishes it off with best SG, which is a very, very cold end as well as a cold beginning. I think the audience there was the journalist, and through no salutation at the beginning and through this very cold end where he doesn't even use his name, just his initials, I think that Sam really wants to just tell this journalist exactly what it is that he wants to tell him and then do one, move on. I'm always interested in what is missing in any statement that I see. What would we expect to be there that isn't there? Now, any offer of help, that is missing. So anything that would help clear this up, anything that would help tell Ellen's story properly, anything that would help the journalist get towards the truth, potentially the truth as Sam sees it, as Sam knows it, no offer of help whatsoever. There's no depth in it whatsoever as well. It's just phrases that seem quite solid, but when you inspect them, they mean nothing. But what's really most worrying for me about this email and what's missing from it is any direct mention that Ellen suffered from poor mental health or that Ellen's demise was related to poor mental health. Now, you might think that is the entire reason for that email. You might think that's everything that email is conveying, but just have a look once more at the email and see if you could spot any direct mention that Ellen suffered from poor mental health or her demise was caused by poor mental health. Any direct indication. Thomas, when Ellen took her own life, it left me bewildered. She was a wonderful and a kind person who had everything to live for. When she died, part of me died with her. Nothing direct so far. Unimaginably, in the years that have passed, I have had to endure the unimaginable passing of my future wife and the pathetic and despicable attempts to desecrate my reputation and her privacy by creating a narrative that embraces lies, distortions and falsehoods in order to avoid the truth. Mental illness is real and has many victims. Nothing to connect so far. I hope and pray you never lose a loved one you love like I did to a terrible disease. Nothing so far. And then be accused by ignorant and misinformed people of causing her death. If you're really writing a truthful story, dig deeper and please do some good by raising awareness for mental health. Best SG. Nothing direct in there whatsoever about Ellen suffering from poor mental health or that leading to her being no longer with us. My conclusion, this email from Sam is hot air. It seems to say so much, but really says so little, and it just avoids bringing any depth or any detail or any clarity at all to what happened. Now, why? Why would he do that? If you enjoyed this, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll get more episodes like this as soon as they land. You can also become a channel member on YouTube or a subscriber on Spotify to get episodes like this before anyone else and exclusive bonus episodes too. Neveratruerword.com is a website. There you will find a whole load more videos looking into this, including the analysis of Sam's 911 call. Or you can find more podcasts. You can sign up for the monthly newsletter. Just check it all out. Neveratruerword.com. And we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.